You have a first-person witness to modern fundraising, and I'd like him to share with you. Would you welcome with a big hand, Hall Powell?
Thank you, Jimmy. Gosh, that makes me seem old. First-person witness. 33 years ago, I got into this wonderful world of philanthropy, helping a friend run for U.S. Congress in North Carolina, where I live. I was in the medical surgical supply business, and Stuart Epperson called me one day and said, Hall, I'm going to run for Congress. And I said, wonderful, Stu. I'll vote for you. He said, no, yeah, I want you to help me win my race. I said, sure. And I thought that meant lick envelopes or make phone calls. He said, I want you to raise money. And I said, okay. And the deal was that if we were successful, that together we would go to Washington and change the world. And option two was that if we didn't win the election, Stuart wanted me to come into his business and made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. However, by election time, I refused both. I decided that I didn't want to be a politician after several trips to Washington and during the campaign. And also I found out that his wonderful career opportunity, and it was, required me to move my wonderful Atlanta, Georgia wife and our three beautiful little girls to the west coast of the United States and set up office for the west coast branch of the business. And I knew that was not going to fly with my family. So I said no to both offers, but I stayed in philanthropy. I went to work for the old Ketchum Company out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ketchum was at that time the oldest and largest fundraising consulting firm in the world, founded by Carlton Ketchum, who helped to build the United States Air Force in World War II for General Hap Arnold. He was an amazing man and a wonderful man. I learned a lot from him. And that led to, as a fundraising consultant, it led me to eventually running 3 hospital foundations, 2 of which I founded in major teaching medical hospitals. And I also have worked with 3 of the largest fundraising consulting firms in America. More than half of my 33 years has been as a consultant to nonprofits. The other time was in the trenches like you are, raising money and working with boards and working with hospital staffs and others. So I've seen the whole gamut of fundraising. 9 years ago, I decided it was time for me to hang it up. I had gone to Savannah, Georgia as a consultant. I was a partner in a major consulting firm out of Atlanta, and we were called in to do a feasibility study for a $35 million campaign for the big teaching hospital medical center in Savannah. They had never raised money, major gifts in Savannah, even though they had a hospital foundation that was founded in 1985, one of the first hospital foundations. That's when they all started, was about 1985, with nonprofit hospitals realizing they needed to raise money to supplement the hospital income. I went in, did a feasibility study. We'll be talking about these feasibility studies later. But I went in to do a feasibility study and came back to the hospital CEO after a period of 4 months and said, I've got good news, bad news for you. Good news is the community loves you. They think you're a wonderful hospital. Bad news, nobody wants to give you any money. And I had a very thick, detailed report. I told him not to worry. They could get ready. They could be prepared to raise that kind of money. They just weren't ready yet. And I had a detailed report, step by step, as to how they should build a major gift fundraising program through their foundation. They made me an offer that I could not refuse to come and implement my report. And I told them if I'd known that, I would have written the report differently. But I did. I took a leave of absence from the consulting firm in Atlanta. They very graciously said, we'll give you 5 years. And I went to Savannah to raise the money to head up the foundation of the hospital and to accomplish that goal. I went in there and found out that the hospital foundation with 7 staff members was raising $2 million a year with 13 special events. Everybody was driving themselves crazy running 13 events. Nobody was watching the budget, the cost of fundraising, but the volunteers in Savannah who loved to party were having fun throwing parties for their friends at the expense of the hospital. Of those 13 events, one of them alone was bringing in $1 million a year, and that was the Children's Miracle Network campaign for the Children's Hospital at the hospital. The other 12 events combined were raising another $1 million. I went in, cut the 13 back to 6. I believe in signature events that give recognition in the community and accomplish other purposes we'll talk about later. We went from 13 to 6 events that specialized in the areas of health. We had a special event for the heart program, for the cancer program, for the Children's Hospital, for diabetes, and so forth. But at the end of that first year, we had raised $12 million. We went from 2 to 12. Nothing brilliant. It's just I applied the principles that you're going to see here. I gave them 4 years instead of 5. We raised $37 million to build an advanced cancer research institute that is still there, doing unique cancer research from bench to bedside, we call it. And I decided that was sort of my pinnacle. So I hung up my shield, and the consulting firm in Atlanta said, "Welcome back." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure I'm back." They said, "Well, why don't you just consult selectively as you want?" And I said, "Well, I may do that." And it was about that time, 2 good friends of mine in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I live on the coast of North Carolina, called me one day and said, "We want you to come to an event in Greenville, North Carolina. It's called National Development Institute." Well, by this time, I had taught around the country and in events like AFP, the old NSFRE. I used to be on their national board, and I taught seminars nationally in the AHP, Association of Healthcare Philanthropy. I used to teach for them. And I've taught through Duke University School of Philanthropy. And I really didn't need another Fundraising 101 conference at that point in time in my life. But because these 2 people invited me, were close friends, and had great credibility as fundraising professionals, I said, okay. It was a 2-day event like ours here. And I told my wife the morning I left to drive to Greenville, about a 4-hour drive, I said, "I'm sure I'll be back tonight." I called her at the end of the day saying, "I'm staying over." And I did. And I met Jimmy. But I heard that day, those 2 days in that conference, a method of developing major gifts and a principle and a philosophy that undergird that method that I had used all of my career. And the whole thing that really grabbed my attention was Jimmy's emphasis on donor-centered fundraising, on earning the right to make the ask. That, in fact, the best philanthropic gift is not the one that meets your need to get, but the best one is the one that meets the donor's need to give. And I had always operated on that philosophy. I always believed in cultivating relationships before making the ask, and I had been very successful in my career. But what I saw with Major Gift Ramp Up was a 13-chapter model that packaged all of those same qualities and techniques of fundraising into a method and a way that I had not seen before that made a lot of sense to me. And I saw the value of doing a feasibility study, not at the beginning of a process, but well into the process once you had developed relationships, and thus getting a better quality of interview when you did do the feasibility study that we call executive interviews in our model. So I met with Jimmy, and Jimmy told me much the same thing that the folks in Atlanta said. Why don't you come on board and work with clients selectively as you want? We'd love to have you. And that's what I did almost 9 years ago now. And I've seen this model work very, very effectively around the country. I've seen nonprofits that never had a fundraising program now have a very effective fundraising program, because this model not only teaches nonprofits how to raise major gifts, it helps them to understand and build a comprehensive fundraising program that is sustainable, ongoing, years and years and years.
With that being said, friends, put this guy in a seersucker suit, right? He's got an amazing suit, and have him sit down with a donor, one of your donors, and love and celebrate them, and all sorts of amazing things happen. Would you thank Hall for me?
Thank you.